Hi everyone, my name is Tony Grillo. Welcome to my channel, Wisconsin Hugs, where I showcase some of the best writing I've done on Facebook and my stories, and just try to keep it fun. And I thought I'd share this picture with you all. A friend sent me this picture. It's the only picture I have of me after graduating college and before I got married. I was 24 years old, 1994, was living in South Chicago Heights, Illinois. And the Stars moved to Dallas, and I became a Blackhawks fan. Yeah, the Minnesota North Stars, my favorite hockey team, went to Dallas, and then they went and won the Stanley Cup in Dallas. And as you can imagine, a lot of us people from Minnesota weren't too happy about that. So I became a Blackhawks fan. I still have the jacket, and this pic cracks me up some because I don't look half bad. And I can remember not having any problems dating. There were a few married women that tried their luck too, but I stayed away from them. Oh, to be 24 again. And this picture goes along with the post that I want to share, because I'm going to tell you about my experiences living in South Chicago Heights right at that time period, right when that picture was taken. Tony Grillo, June 1st, 2020. Kind of wrote this post after the aftermath of George Floyd in Minneapolis and what happened to this man that tried to flee the police in Kenosha, Wisconsin, and the Kenosha burnings. And so I wrote this post. I don't condone the murder of George Floyd at the hands of the Minneapolis police, but I'd like to share my experiences of being a young white guy at 24 years old, where that picture was taken. I lived for about a year in this black city of South Chicago Heights. And these events happened almost 30 years ago. I was working for a national waste tire recycling operation called National Tire Disposal, and accepted an invitation to work at the headquarters operation in Illinois. I spent the previous year living and working in Tucson, Arizona, and the first thing I did when I got to South Chicago Heights was stop at a gas station. And while I was pumping gas, I happened to be wearing a Florida Seminoles baseball cap. And a car full of black youths pulled up behind me, and then the driver said, "You aren't from around here, are you?" I pointed at my Arizona plates and said no. He was really pleasant, said, "Well, you don't want to wear those colors on top of your head." And so I immediately tore the hat from off my head and tossed it in my car and said, "Thank you for the warning," and they left. Now, all the guys I worked with on the floor were hard-working blacks, and all the guys in the office were white. And my job as foreman meant I dealt with everyone on a daily basis. My black coworkers always called me 5-0, I guess from the show Hawaii 5-0, because I guess I reported to the office. And they told me on my first day at the plant that if I ever get pulled over by a cop in South Chicago Heights, they warned me to do exactly what the cop here orders me to do. And most of all, I had to keep my hands up or I would get shot. The company provided me with a nice little studio apartment, but I would hear police sirens going all the time. And I saw the newspaper reports of police shootings. And I also saw the gangs rule the city. There was violence and drugs everywhere, and it was like the cops there had to act tougher than the gangs. I'm sure many of the cops there didn't know if they were coming home that day or not, and I can't imagine the stress those cops there went through every day. And the city itself was a dive hole. It was a very depressing place. A few days later, I sat in my first ever meeting with the top executives there. They were discussing promotions, and I was shocked when I heard the president himself say that he would never hire a black guy to be a manager of one of his divisions. And so that hardworking black guy's name was dropped from further consideration. And being the new guy, I didn't say anything because I wanted to succeed, and later I felt bad. I didn't make a stand for what is right. And as I worked the floor operations and as I got to know my black coworkers, I began to feel their frustration I never told them what I heard at the meeting because being a foreman, I didn't want any disruption in production. But I heard them saying out loud once that they knew they would never get promoted. And yet they all still came to work every day, and all of them did excellent work with an outsider white 23-year-old being their foreman. Couldn't ask for a better crew. And I have to tell you, these executives weren't at all like most of my black crew. The bosses were real sleazebags. They took me to a strip bar one night, and afterwards they made a stop at a slum apartment. They were my ride, so I tagged along and wish I hadn't. We were at the place of an employee, a member of my morning crew, and he was out, but there were kids everywhere. And then I realized my crew guy pimped his wife out, and she took my bosses into her bedroom and shut the door while the kids watched TV. I was totally sickened by this and told my bosses I had no interest and left, and walked all the way home for an hour in freezing Chicago weather because taxi cabs didn't run or operate in that town. But the very next morning, I sensed a change in attitudes towards me from my black coworkers. It was a warmness, and I'm guessing they all knew about the situation with the wife and somehow heard I walked out. Probably gained their respect. Eventually, the company folded. Anybody that invested in their stock lost all their money. I was happy to leave and find a job in Wisconsin. The FBI began investing stock fraud and later uncovered mafia ties, wouldn't you know? I remember one time a guy walking out with a suitcase full of money, and one of the black guys said, "Yep, mafia." I later learned that I was liked because I was not only white, but I was also Italian. And the bosses fled. I know, because a year later, one of the wives called me wondering if I was hiding her husband in Wisconsin. How ironic it was that all the top executives that were white, with the racist president included, all wound up being the guys the FBI were chasing. I've lived in many different states, but Chicago was an entirely different animal. It's where the boss once said, "We have a broken machine, how do we fix it?" And the supervisor said, "It'll take 3 days to order the part, or we could steal it and be running in the morning." The next morning the machine was running, and some of my crew got the day off because they were the guys that made the midnight parts run. I'll admit, they were a very talented crew. They didn't get caught, and no one asked questions. And one day, one of my black coworkers ran onto the floor and said to me, "The cops are after me. Don't tell them you saw me." And then he tore out through the exit. We went back to work, and I never saw the cops, and I never saw him again. And I never learned why he was being chased or if he even was being chased. But you know what? If the cops had come inside, I know I would have played dumb and not said anything. The guy was part of my crew, and we were family. South Chicago Heights was the only city I've never missed. That is true. Or would go back to. And yeah, after spending a year of my life there, I can understand the frustration and anger my black friends there felt. That is very true. So that is my my post for today. And I hope you all have a great day.